The last thing I wanted to get from you, Ken, is you've been a bit of a student, I would say, of Elon Musk, our new God King, apparently. Elon Musk has been put in charge of this DOGE government-wide mandate to, he claims he wants to cut $2 trillion. I saw him out there tweeting today that he wants to get rid of the SEC, which of course is like defunding the white collar police. Of course he wants to get rid of them. I think he has some sort of regulatory action dealing with them where they allege that he was manipulating the stock market through his tweets, whatever. I'm sure he does want to get rid of the SEC. He said he wanted to delete the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which of course has delivered billions of dollars back to American consumers who have gotten screwed. I'm sure him and his billionaire buddies do want to delete that agency as well. There have been kind of two reads on DOGE. One is that it's this kind of make work blue ribbon commission that's not really going to matter, not really going to mean anything. I don't really subscribe to that view. I think Elon Musk put $250 million into this election, and he's going to get something out of it. What is your view of the heft of this commission, the significance of it? And, to me, it's sort of just manifestly as a matter of principle, I'm opposed to billionaires, unelected billionaires controlling our government. I think it's a deeply pernicious situation that we have just like this overt handing of power over to the richest man on earth who effectively bought this election on behalf of Donald Trump.
Another set of contradictions emerges on this issue because you have Republicans saying, oh yeah, spending is out of control, waste. And then Trump is going to push more tax cuts, which are going to increase the deficit. And, maybe you care about the deficit, maybe you don't. But certainly these Republicans say, certainly Republicans claim to care about it. And so, well, how do you square that with that? And then another issue is when you watch the financial analysts, I was watching a CNBC segment with some of their Wall Street experts, and they were saying, there's not very much discretionary money to cut unless you go after things like Medicaid and social safety net stuff or the military. And they said this explicitly. They said it's either going to be these benefits things that are broadly popular or it's going to be the military. So, and then you go and watch the elected officials, and I've posted some videos of Republican congressmen being asked these things. There was one guy, I can't remember which representative, I can't remember which representative it was, but he was asked about this exact question on Fox Business. To her credit, the host said, okay, well, we have all this big talk about cutting. What about the military, though? And he says, quote, I'm not a fan of that.
After he had just
talking
gone
this
on
big
a whole
game
thing about how much he wanted to cut Social Security.
It's strangling
Medicare.
us, and we've got to do all this stuff. And he says we need to say the unpopular thing and be courageous enough to speak the truth. She's like, okay, well, what about this? He goes, I'm not a fan of that. It's like, what? And she says, why? And he goes, well, China. And it's like, so to me, that is a portent of what's to come, which is here's this huge bloated sector that exists within the context of all these experts saying, we got to focus on China, we got to focus on China, we got to focus on China. Okay, great. Let's pull back our spending on some of these other theaters. Nope, sorry, can't do that because whatever national security threat boogeyman is going to jump out and get you. So then what does that leave us with? These broadly popular entitlement programs that they're going to target. And so I'd be very worried about that. Not to mention the fact that Elon himself, owner of SpaceX, is a huge government contractor and has a conflict in that regard. So, my view is if they're able to focus, they have tweeted and posted some about military waste, and if they go ahead and do that, that's great. And I'll be, despite my personal history with Elon, I'll be the first to give them credit if they go after that part of the budget, the military budget. But as it stands, it just seems unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of drives me crazy how few people mention what you just mentioned, which is this is not a disinterested actor here, right, acting out of the goodness of his heart.
It's a huge contractor.
He is literally one of the largest Pentagon contractors. Not to mention, he has all kinds of enforcement actions against him and his companies for labor violations. He is suing to completely end the National Labor Relations Board. He's entangled with the SEC and securities violations. There are allegations of employment discrimination, of environmental degradation, and now you've just handed over this whole of government mandate. And, do I think he'll be able to cut $2 trillion? No, because the entirety of the federal government discretionary budget is $1.6 trillion. So it's just not feasible to cut that amount of dollars in modern American, in today's day and age. But they have been evaluating ways that they could unilaterally, without needing Congress, be able to cut spending. They think, they have this theory that while, yes, of course, Congress has the power of the purse, that the executive is not obligated to spend all of the money that is appropriated, meaning that they can just cut and not spend whatever that they really feel like it. So it's not like they're going into this with the sense of just like, oh, we're going to prepare a report and then we'll see what our congressional legislators want to do. No, and they also have this idea that Vivek has floated that any program that hasn't had its funding officially reauthorized, and we're talking about things like veterans healthcare, that also could be just, completely cut or, cut to the bone, etc. So it seems to me like they are quite serious about some of these things. And Elon is not economically aligned with, the branding image of Trumpism. Elon is like a fan of Javier Milei and these like anarcho-capitalist types.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was saying before about the schizophrenia character of. It's definitely different from the first administration. I'm not saying it's the same, but they don't seem to agree on things, and they're constantly contradicting each other, and it's unclear to what extent Trump is even aware of that. But I will say isn't this surreal to watch? Right at the heels of the Pentagon's 7th failed audit in a row. And then right after that, being like, oh yeah, anyways, entitlements, we got to get those. Like,
right.
What?
Well, and not to mention, they just passed, didn't they just pass a new defense budget through the House, which is like unprecedentedly gigantic. Yeah. And suddenly all these Republicans who will pretend on Twitter like they're in favor of defense cuts, they just all vote for it. That's why I just can't take it seriously at all, because there's zero evidence. Trump, last administration, increased the defense budget every single time.
Yeah. So
you really think a guy who's one of the Pentagon's biggest contractors is really going to take a hatchet to defense spending? Like, who are we kidding here?
Yeah.
Ken, tell people again where they can find your work and support the incredible journalism that you do.
Just Google Ken Klippenstein Substack and take a look at all the documents that we've been describing here.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Ken, and thank you guys so much out there for watching and supporting this show, Crystal Kyle and Friends, which you can subscribe to on Substack, and we've really appreciated. We've seen, I'm sure as you have more than us, Ken, but we've seen an uptick after the election. I think there's a lot of liberals out there who are sort of, feel abandoned by and misled and lied to by places like MSNBC and, really betrayed with things like Joe and Mika just going down to Mar-a-Lago and making nice and sucking up to Trump after calling him Hitler 2 weeks earlier. Like, I think there's an opening for people. So that part is at least a little bit hopeful.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see these outlets saying, "Oh, this is a disaster." I think MSNBC. There was just a story out about MSNBC today, just hemorrhaging viewers, and it's like it's going great for me. I don't know what you're talking about, and I really do think. I mean, their inability to look at themselves in the mirror and say, "Hey, maybe I have some role in why things for me are not going well." It's just stunning.